Welcome back to a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. And this is a first. We're in the brand new studio and we actually have a live guest today instead of the Zoom. I'm very, very excited to welcome all of you to learn a little bit about health and how we build it into wealth. And today we have Dr. Meghana Thanki.
Yes.
Welcome
Wonderful.
to the
Thank you
podcast.
so much. What a beautiful space.
Yeah, Lexi did a wonderful job, kind of brought all the elements of our passions, which is music and not just the overall markets and books and so forth. So we're very excited.
Beautiful.
So today we're going to talk a lot about health and holistic health and spirituality and really dive into some things that it's going to be new for me and new for the listeners in regards to the type of medicine that you've practiced for a number of years. So before we jump in, let's let the listeners learn a little bit more about you. So what, how did health and wellness, where did that come from for you to spend, your career in building your practice?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. It kind of dates back to, I'd say, my grandparents and parents. So come from a family of doctors, MDs. Grandparents were OBGYN and surgeon back in East Africa. From there, my parents were both physicians, ER physicians, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst. And so obviously I was like, I'm going into medicine too.
Had to, right? There was no other choice.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I did not do so well on the MCAT. So that veered me away from, Western allopathic medicine. And naturally just kind of found something that I could blend both Eastern, Western medicine, natural herbs, and also be a doctor. And that's naturopathic doctorate. Yeah. That's the doctor path I went down. And there's only a few schools in the United States. And I chose the one here in Arizona, grew up in Michigan, went to school in DC for undergrad, and then graduated almost 15 years ago in naturopathic school right here in our backyard. So, but me being a seeker, I kept on seeking for more knowledge. Ayurveda, which is the body of science that we're going to talk about today, wasn't taught in my school, but it was something so dear and near to my heart, being Indian, being from India, having that background, growing up with the spices. My grandparents and parents were so much into spiritual wellness, yoga, meditation. My grandparents were actually meditation teachers all over Europe. So there was just so much ingrained in our upbringing that I knew Ayurveda was the next thing for me to seek and understand and to become a yoga teacher. So I actually went on to study Ayurveda over almost 15 years, all different schools across the US also, mostly in California, and then also in India for quite a bit of time. So that's kind of brings us to today in terms of just my kind of deep knowledge and deep seeking and deep wisdom, especially around Ayurveda, which is what I practice.
And naturopathic, that whole side of wellness 15 years ago was still kind of in its infancy.
It was
all over the United States more so.
It really was. I was a class of like 50 students and we were so intimate. We learned together. We, graduated together. A lot of them, it was their second careers too. So I was one of the young ones. But just kind of kept pushing through. In the naturopathic field, we learn acupuncture, we learn Western herbs, we learn chiropractic, we learn massage, we learn IVs, we learn so many different things. But I knew like something was missing, and that was the Ayurveda, the whole lifestyle of being able to live by that science.
So let's do on a high level for a lot of the listeners who know about naturopathic and some of the Eastern philosophies, but don't really know about Ayurveda. If we talk the real basics of it, and then we'll dig in to the deeper side.
So Ayurveda, the best way to explain it is Ayur and Veda. And Veda are the sciences, like the what we call the scriptures, part of the body of wisdom, the knowledge of wisdom. And Ayur is life. So we're talking about the science of life. We're really talking about how to live life in tune with nature. And that's exactly it. We're talking 5,000-year-old history. From that comes Chinese, Tibetan, Greek, all these other medicines that have similar tongue and pulse understandings. So this medicine really brings us back to our roots and universal principles of understanding the elements in nature. So once we understand the elements outside of us, then we can understand those same elements exist within us. And then we begin to understand how to balance our beings.
And we think about the element, we're talking fire and
You
water.
got it. Fire, water, earth,
Okay.
air, and space. Those are the five. And then you bring Chinese medicine in and you're talking about wood and metal, right? So everything kind of took a little bit of a turn as the medicines kind of evolved. But that's what we come back to, the five Mahabhutas, the five elements. These are Sanskrit words. Yeah.
And growing up in Africa, that you grew up,
I
East
grew
Africa?
up, I was born in England. My parents and grandparents were all born and raised in East Africa.
And were they practicing this modality of medicine, or was it more just brought into your everyday, your culture?
Brought in every day through the spices,
Okay.
right? Through yoga, which was big in our family as we were growing up. Through meditation. Meditation was a big part of our upbringing. My grandparents would take me into the basement and we would learn how to watch our breath, like
Yeah.
at the age of 10, you know? So, and a lot of dancing too. I was very much into dancing and, just the Indian culture. But I'd say the Indian culture is still different than Ayurveda. And just because we're Indian in a sense means we're going to use the spices, we're going to use some of those cooking principles, etc. But Ayurveda takes it one step further because we're talking disease management, right? We're talking lifestyle, we're talking how to live in tune with nature. So just by kind of being Indian and being brought up with some of the things, this is just a deeper way to understand kind of from the health
Right.
perspective. Yeah.
And conventional medicine, and we're not going to knock on it, but
Sure.
in theory, is conventional medicine the way it's been here, at least in the United States? It's like, let's not figure out what's wrong until something's wrong.
Yeah, it's
And then we try
disease,
to
it's
fix it.
symptom. Yeah, it's symptom based. And what's beautiful, which I was going to mention, that's a great question about Ayurveda, is that we're talking of an entire preventative system of health and wellness. And a lot of times, like we're taught, okay, once we, have something going on with us, then only do we go
Yeah.
seek help. So absence of disease is really modern medicine's, allopathic's definition of health. Whereas if I read you the entire definition of health according to Ayurveda, we're talking so many more aspects. 24 hours of blissful meditative thoughts, right? Thinking
24
about,
hours?
yeah,
Mm.
being in bliss, being in the present moment, like so many spiritual aspects come into play. And then we've got urine, feces, sweat, like things that we should be eliminating daily, knowing that that's happening. Also knowing that our digestive fire is at its peak. Are we hungry? Like these are all part of the definition of health. So it becomes just so much more.
And the reading I've done prior to today, a little bit of it is that people will search out for, someone, if your expertise is a lot of the gut too, right? So
Yes.
part of Ayurveda is figured out the individual.
Yes.
And then helping
Yes.
with certain things like
the gut is the crux for sure.
Yeah.
Is the crux of Ayurveda's health and wellness aspect. Even if you put your hand on your belly button, you'll understand, and touch the skin, you'll say, oh, is there a little bit of warmth there? There should be some warmth. Our fire is actually kind of coming through there. It's sitting right behind there. It's called Agni. Agni is our fire. So all of the herbs, all of everything we kind of talk about in Ayurveda comes back to, well, the Agni. Is it stoked? Is it fired? Is it kindled? How is it doing? Right. And we judge that by how our appetite is, right? How quickly we digest our food. How do we feel after? So many questions, bowel movements, all of that.
And so when someone's searching you out and they come to find you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because they've exhausted all other areas and they're not figuring out their health.
Yeah.
So I guess it could be that way, or somebody who is focused on doing some of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they have a full belief in this full holistic type of medicine and well-being. How do you, between the two, like somebody who's never really gone down this path of maybe you've heard of it and they have some beliefs in it but don't really fully understand it, or so caught into the conventional
Mm-hmm.
health system here, what does that look like when you meet with somebody for the first time who tracks you down, and maybe it is because they have no other place to go?
No, you're completely right about that in many ways. We are somewhat of a last stop for people, for sure. They've exhausted all, immediate concerns, cancer, anything that needs an MRI, or any of these beautiful allopathic tools we have.
Right.
We're so lucky to have. And then they come to somebody like me or any other naturopath, and they're like, I've just looked at everything else and it just all feels so complex. How can we come back to something so simple, so beautiful, and so ancient, time tested, and has so much wisdom and knowledge based around it? And that's the beauty of
Hmm.
Ayurveda. And when they come back to that, and I kind of leave all the diagnoses at the doorstep, right?
Yeah.
Before they walk in, and I don't really, you know, buy into the belief of Sjogren's and all of these connective tissue disorders and all of this MS and all of these things, I take a step back and I'm
Hmm.
able to really assess pulse, tongue, put my hands on their belly, like use ancient diagnostic tools because they've already done the lab tests. They've
Right.
already done all that. And then come back to like, okay, what are the elements that are out of balance? Is it more vata, which is air? Is it more pitta, which is all about the fire? Is it more kapha, which is about earth? Can we come back to simplicity, look at the whole body as just more of an elemental point of view, and then start to treat based on diet, lifestyle, herbs? So that's how I initially
Mm.
consult with somebody and how we talk. Now, most people, they got to type in this hard word Ayurveda
Right.
to find somebody, right? And so a lot of people, it's still coming mainstream. But I'd say people like Chopra have done a wonderful job at really bringing it mainstream
Yeah.
and making it their mission.
So you check the pulse, things like the
Mhm.
tongue does have from
The
the visible
tongue,
has a lot of things that you can tell by looking at the tongue.
100%.
Talk through on a little bit of what you're looking
Tongue,
for on
we're
that end.
looking at the coating. So, is there a coating on the tongue? Is there a thick white coating? Is it a little thinner? Is it fatter? Is it more kind of a slimy looking? Is it swollen in nature? Does it have cracks? Does it have cracks down the center, scallops? I mean, there's so much
Mm.
to look at, but it gives us so much insight, which is so beautiful. And to be able to do this exactly, observe, right? Observe the body, observe the tongue. Um, and observe the person, the whole person, that's where some of these beautiful tools can help us understand so much so quickly.
Yeah. And so then are you asking questions? I mean, you can look at the lab reports, things
Right.
of that nature, but you're trying to almost put that out and
Hmm.
say, let's put that aside. Let's
Yes.
start with a clean slate.
Yes.
And then we look at some of the physical, you did some of this. And
Hmm.
then is it also then getting to know what the person's lifestyle is? Tell me a little bit about your day,
100%.
your week, your month, your year.
It
What are you
is.
doing?
It is. I love starting out my consults with, just tell me your life history, your life
Mm.
story, your health story, and tell me in any order. Now, current, past doesn't matter. And then I fill in the blanks as I ask questions about, exercise. What time of day are you exercising? When's your heaviest meal? Is it at lunch? Is it at dinner? What time is it at? Then I would talk about sleep. Tough time falling asleep, staying asleep, or good on both. How often are bowel movements? How often are you getting hungry? What's your energy like? So a lot of basic questions, but really filling in the gaps on what I call really trying to understand causative factors. And the causative factors, cause and effect, we know this, right? Is what gives me the biggest clues in somebody's disease process, or just symptom based, what's starting out for them. And that helps me then really hone in on, okay, well, what do we need to do, what changes do we need to
Mm.
make, both in lifestyle, in diet, what herbs do I need to give? So that gives me a clue to all of that.
Yeah. And I assume too, a lot of people come with some skin conditions
Hmm.
and they've gone through all these different channels and can't figure
Yes.
it out.
Yes.
So now they come to you and you're able then, is it through testing that with skin disorders and things like
Skin
that?
skin happens to be a definite specialty of mine, only
Okay.
because what started to happen is in dermatology, we don't have that many tools, right?
Right.
We've got some pharmaceutical kind of quick topicals, but that's not getting rid to the root of the whole issue. So skin disease has fallen into my lap multiple times. I've had such a beautiful journey with it to be able to help little kids like
Mm.
with eczema and scabbing and almost bleeding, to grown adults, and been able to really see cure, and acne patients too. And what's beautiful about the skin then is that, yes, we dive deep into causative factors such as tomatoes and cheese and adding fruits with milk, and there's certain food combinations, and really cleaning up these like big guns, I call it, like the big fiery things. And then from there we eliminate causative factors, number one. Two, we actually treat with herbs. And three, if there's any lifestyle things that I feel are in the way. So we really hit on like physical, mental,
Yeah.
emotional, spiritual. It's a whole science. It's a way of living life.
And it's, it's testing, I assume. So when
You
somebody
asked
comes
me
to
about that,
see
yeah.
you, is it where it's you trying certain things because you have your certain focus, and
Hmm.
but everyone's an individual, everyone has their own
Yeah.
unique situation.
Hmm.
How long does it normally take for somebody to start seeing some positive effects of the things that you're bringing into their life?
I'd say we give it a good 2 to 3 months in the
Hmm.
first place, just to like make a dent, right? And this is all dependent on how long has this disease process been going on. The quicker some things just kind of come on and is not been had a chance to really like sit inside and kind of really
Yeah.
set up home, the quicker we have a chance to kind of reverse what's happening. Obviously, sometimes that's our only negative downside is something's been going on for 10 years. Well, it's going to take us a little longer to
Yeah.
cure, right? We have tools such as panchakarma, some deeper detox treatments that we can do for patients that are a little more intense for sure. They're not just take these herbs and go home. They're over 5 days, 7 days. That helps take out bigger doshas at a time. Doshas are those fire, air, and
Yes.
yes, we didn't mention that. That helps take chunks of those and kind of throw them out the door in a sense. But to answer your question back to the testing, there's no real testing other than this ancient tools of pulse and tongue diagnosis, and then a bunch of herbs that have been, in a sense, well understood in terms of certain disease paths.
Right.
Because Ayurveda has an entire system of disease management in these beautiful Sanskrit books that are thousands of years old, where we can go back and look and say, okay, it's this type of skin disease. Okay, here are some of the herbs that we can use for that.
And what type of herbs what
Yeah.
are we talking
What would
about?
we know? We'd know herbs like things that you guys, we'd all know about are things like ginger.
Hmm.
Simple, but powdered ginger in a sense. Or we sometimes use wet ginger. We might grate it. We might tell people to take that with a little bit of honey and a little bit of the herbs. Ashwagandha is a big herb that's come full circle, and we know about it in terms of being infused into different drinks now, maybe, or turmeric. Turmeric's a
You
big
just bring
one,
up turmeric. Yeah.
right? The golden lattes and the golden milk and the quick turmeric shots. Like all of this has definitely seeped into our culture, which is so beautiful, which just gives it so much more credibility. Other Indian herbs, guduchi. Guduchi is one that's, we call it the one that keeps us immortal. It's got these upside down heart shaped leaves. Um, Gosh, what other ones? Shatavari is a very well known woman's herb. Triphala might be in some good formulations nowadays too. So people are adding these herbs for
Yeah.
sure into other formulations that are not Ayurvedic. So they're making their way, these Eastern herbs.
And is intermittent fasting or fasting in general, is that
Mhm.
a component of what you do and how you try to treat some of your patients?
Yeah, there definitely is a room for fasting. There's a word langan, Langhan, and this is a word for fasting in Ayurveda. And I always, anytime any patient has a fever, for example, the best thing to do, anyway, we're not quite hungry, but is to fast, and that automatically reduces um, the load of toxins in
Mm.
our body naturally. So there was so much wisdom around this back in the day, back in our textbooks, that yes, whenever someone's not feeling their best, the best thing to do is give the digestive system a break and give that fire a chance to kind
Mm.
of rekindle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little reset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So great question. I love that.
And
Yeah.
then, and I've been over the last probably 4 years or so, and I know it's become this hot trend, but the cold hot therapy, right? So I'm a
Yes.
big believer in sauna
Yep.
and cold plunge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think it's a placebo effect. I know how I feel after, but in
Sure.
regards to getting some toxins out, things of that nature, what is your thoughts? What's the belief in your
Yeah.
systems in regards to using hot as a way to get out toxins and cold?
It's perfect. It's actually perfect knowing that we have these ways now, specifically, actually, after our warm oil treatments at our
Hmm.
clinic, we put people in a steam tent because what it does is it drives those oils further into the skin. So heat in general, right? Wet steam, dry steam, doesn't matter, infrared sauna, any of that. It's a way to bring the toxins into the digestive tract, right? They naturally, there's this whole valley that kind of happens into from our mouth to the anal area. It's a one big track, right?
Yeah.
That's where all the toxins go into. And then once they get into that, they find their closest way out and they dump out of their system. So there's so much beauty in the hot, even in the contrast therapy.
Mm.
Hot and cold, we learned a lot of that hydrotherapy in school. Great way to kind of just keep the body moving, the lymph moving. All of this makes a
Yeah.
difference.
Supplements. So we have, with the herbs and things of that nature, everyone's trying to get that quick fix. What's that supplement I should take? And obviously that's a
Mhm.
loaded question, but are there supplements that
Supplements.
people should
Hmm.
be taking, or is a lot of that just farm and these big
Yeah.
companies that are selling things?
That's an excellent question. And I think in Ayurveda there are definitely there's definitely room for like tonics and tinctures or just jams or things that we can incorporate into food as medicine in a sense. And so, are we using that turmeric every day on our cooking, even
Mhm.
on our eggs, right? Like anything that we can infuse these spices and herbs into our food, at least from my perspective, are great ways to keep the Ayurvedic herbs integrate them into our system. Now, there's a ton of things too, lifestyle wise, that we can do daily that I believe are kind of the secret gems to anti aging, let's say.
And we're not going to tell you that till the next episode, right? No. Talk to me.
So,
What are some of these secret gems?
just like warm oil on our bodies, we forget about kind of the importance of our skin, our largest organ, right? That's our immune system too. So, how awesome to, as part of a daily routine, this is written again in the textbooks, nothing I made up, but daily oiling of our skin. And that too, then into a steam shower, into something that helps push those oils in further. And these are medicated oils. They're medicated with herbs and they're base of sesame oil, so antimicrobial. So just so many beautiful effects that this ancient um, tool, ancient practice, this ritual has been ingrained into most people's lives who know anything about Ayurveda, um, and is kind of one of the secrets to kind of anti aging and to keeping what we call our vitality alive. So, as you talk of supplements, it's like, yes, we've got the herbs, we've got the medicines, we've got you know, um, we've got some beautiful practices, though, that we can put into place as well.
And how would someone with the oil, are they coming to your clinic or are they doing
Yeah.
it self each day?
So
What?
meant to do daily at home
Hmm.
by yourself, but nowadays people love to be kind of love to receive, right? So we do offer this Abhyanga oil massage, it's called, at our clinic just down the street from you guys. We're in Old Town. And it's a beautiful practice and beautiful ritual that somebody can actually come and get. And then that way they understand what they're receiving. And then they say, okay, well, in between, I can do this on myself. Great for postpartum mothers, great for small babies. So we want to, this is the whole practice of Ayurveda, is incorporating this as much as we can
Yeah.
into our lives.
And it's probably with some music playing, it allows them
Oh,
to get
yeah.
into a state of
Full.
relaxation,
Yep.
get out of the hustle, the technology, disconnect,
You
all of
got
those
it.
things that we're battling on a daily basis.
Yes, we are. And we're coming
Yeah.
back to that, that getting out of that busyness and into our bodies again.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you mentioned earlier about cancer and MS or even
Hmm.
like Alzheimer's, things like that. So we
Yeah.
have, certain illnesses where we maybe haven't gone down these extremes of, hey, this is bad. We just need to get on track. I need to get energy going. I need to figure out the
Hmm.
gut. But when we think of the C word, right?
Yes.
Obviously, there's good in the medicine here that's served on the Western side. But
Hmm.
what would somebody who's gone through and maybe been battling and challenging and keeps coming back on
Hmm.
cancer side, does Ayurveda, is it, are you able to help an individual on that end, or is it working in conjunction with their
I'd I'd
their
say
MD?
conjunction for the
Yeah,
most part. Once they're on a track of say chemo and radiation and other
yeah.
ways to battle it more aggressively, I think there's so much room for complementary treatments in Ayurveda to help support the system. And it depends at what stage in their life people are at. And also, if there's no knowledge about, well, what can I put into my gut? What can I feed my,
Hmm.
there's so much that can be done just with food as medicine that not necessarily does a cancer patient need to have herbs and other things that might interact with their chemo, et cetera. Because the worry is really, even in my IV therapy that I do with patients, is we don't want to feed the cancer cells. So then we're like, we're doing vitamin C, we're doing all these amazing antioxidants and all this stuff. So there's always this worry while in treatment not to, mix up, give the cancer cells a different message
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, but there's so much that can be done,
Yeah.
lifestyle. Hmm.
And also,
Yeah.
with the mental health, with a lot of us
Yeah.
living longer, well into our 90s and
Yeah.
100s, that mental capacity and trying to exercise the mind, things of that nature.
Hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, we mentioned earlier how with even growing up for you
Hmm.
was the meditation
Yes.
and trying to calm and things of that nature. So a lot of people, myself included, that's one thing that I know it would do me justice, and just trying to disconnect and get into that daily routine of even 5 minutes.
Yes.
So with the, that type of health and wellness, right?
Hmm.
How do we build meditation into a practice, and how does it tie into how you teach your patients the
Yes.
proper way that they can do all these other things, but let's get some clarity with the mind.
100%. I mean, I think one of the first quotes in our Ayurvedic textbooks that we can refer back to is all disease starts in the mind,
Mm,
right? And we get to know this more and more as a lot of the, neuroscience and all of these beautiful data is coming out, but we always knew this though. And so the mind is the most important thing. That's exactly where we need to start a lot of these practices. Something like you said, 5 minutes of meditation daily. I practice something called Vipassana meditation. I don't know if any of you listeners have heard of that, but you can go to a 10-day silent retreat, completely paid for. It's donation based. You just got to get yourself there. This is what my grandparents were teaching for years. And I've probably sat like 7 or 8 courses myself. I was pregnant with both my little babies and I went to sit.
and what are their names again?
My kids' names are Ayura and Veda.
Imagine that. Look at that. It all
That's my
comes full
passion. All
circle.
my passion for Ayurveda poured into them. And so I sat with both of them, and I really have to say that, a lot of my presence of being and who I am today
Yeah.
is from sitting those courses, those intense courses, and then just having those thought patterns and understanding, moment to moment type of
Mm,
practice like that. It's a Buddhist kind of
yeah.
following, but it's all universal principles and it's just following the breath. So a lot of times I'll teach my patients just to kind of sit kind of as an observer and watch the breath as it goes in the nostrils, as it goes out. And they're taking like normal natural breathing and then they're letting it kind of come to kind of a standpoint so that as soon as that little monkey mind comes in and says, well, pay attention to me over here, my thoughts,
Yeah.
they're asked to just bring their attention right back to their breath. Just notice as it comes in, as it goes out. So that's one practice I teach a lot of my patients, and that's something simple that we can get into. And then, I'm so into spiritual psychology and a lot of the seeker in me, always learning new things. Just finished actually 2 years of University of Santa Monica spiritual psychology and really taking 33 amazing principles that we've always known. Listening, right?
What'd you say?
Listening, right? Compassionate self
Yeah.
forgiveness, like acceptance, taking responsibility, like big themes like this. So now I'm starting to pull some of that in because Ayurveda is great at the physical level, understanding disease process, but I want it to go one step
Hmm.
further because we know it's in the mind. So how to really help patients with that deeper
Yeah.
piece. And so I've been doing a lot of that with patients lately, affirmations, like all of it makes a difference
Right.
somewhere.
And
Yeah.
so the 10 days, and you've done that multiple times. So
Hmm.
10 days,
Hmm.
meditation, no talking, almost
Yes.
like monk like.
Monk like.
Yeah.
You got it.
Did you
Yeah.
walk out of there when you do that? Do you
Yeah.
walk out of there energized and
Oh yeah.
refocused and grounded and ready to come back? But then Is it hard to come back to the
It
real
is.
world?
It is hard to come back. You're silent, you're with your thoughts, right? And then everything just feels kind of
Mm.
bombarding, and it takes some time to integrate back into the world. But what you're left with is amazing as far as just such simple principles. There's a discourse every night, so we're listening to something,
Yeah.
and that's something is stories and different ways to integrate this into real life. So they are talking through that. So it's just been a beautiful kind of journey, and something introduced to me at a very young age. I think I
Yeah.
sat my first course when I was 17, maybe 16. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
So,
17-year-old. I would a daughter, and
oh,
I
yeah.
can't imagine her not talking for 10
And saying,
days.
like, I'm going to sign
Yeah.
up for this.
Yeah, we're gonna sign her up. We'll get it going. So
There
Winter,
you
her
go.
name is Winter. You're
I,
going to a 10-day retreat.
I love it.
Um,
I love it.
and a lot.
They're all over the world, by the way.
So these that you've done were in the
Yes,
States, or where
I've
did
been
you?
in the ones in the States. I almost sat one in India. My sisters have sat in Brazil before. Like, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So if it's exciting to go, abroad somewhere and
Yeah.
sit, that's great too.
And the principles you were just talking about from the course you took with Santa Monica,
Those
those
are,
5 or 6 you just mentioned, those are just great, even parenting to be able to bring into
oh
the
yeah,
equation of helping to raise
yeah.
good kids.
Oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. There's so much at our disposal, especially in this society
Yeah.
today, and how things have
Yeah.
changed, and that's even more important to bring these principles
Yeah.
alive.
And the breath work you were talking about, again, I don't do it religiously, but every time I've done breath work, you
Hmm.
walk out and you feel great, or
Yeah,
you stand up and you feel great. And
you
it's
do.
just like, why don't we continue on these practices? And you
Hmm.
just get caught into the
The
day and your
busyness of
stress
life.
and so
Yep.
much going on, and let the mind, as you indicate, kind of be your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a constant challenge, especially with technology, the interconnective,
Hmm.
even though we're less connected than ever, but just being connected. When we grew up, it was a lot different. And
It
it's just,
was.
it seems like it's a battle for not just kids,
Yeah.
but even the attention spans for adults is getting worse and
Hmm.
worse by the year.
It is. It is. I would agree on that. And so all the more, have you seen the recent Netflix How to Live to Your 100?
No, not
Dan
yet.
Butler. Oh,
It's good.
viewers got to watch it. Yes, it
Yeah.
is great, because what's beautiful is they've studied, you know, many countries where people are living over 100, up to 100, and they're, trying to bring some of that. They call them the blue zones. You've
Yeah.
heard of the blue zones. And what's beautiful was so many of those principles were, they don't say they're based in Ayurveda, but they completely are
Right.
normal, natural, easy things to implement.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, just this is the wave now
Yeah.
of the
And one of
future.
the books I'm reading right now, Peter Attia, called Outlive.
Okay.
Um, it's very similar to some of the
Yeah.
practices that you're
Yeah.
talking about with Ayurveda,
Yeah.
so,
Hmm.
but it's about not, it's about having this long life, but having it be
Like
a good life,
yeah, like a
and
rich life.
right.
Yeah.
So a lot of what he's bringing to the table is, ingrained in what you're
I think
talking
we're
about.
all coming back to the same thing. To be
Yeah.
totally honest, I think we're at a place in life, in our culture, in all of that, where things became so complex, and we're
Hmm.
coming just back to simplicity. And that's where the wealth lies. Talking about wealth, that's where the health
Yeah.
lies. It's where all of it lies,
Yeah. And
in my
then,
opinion. Yeah.
nature is, I think, a big component too,
I
to
think it's
all of
huge.
this.
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
We didn't talk of it, but there's times of the day where we should be having our biggest meal.
And
10 to 2.
okay.
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is where our sun is at its peak. We already have that digestive fire kindled inside of us, and we have the sun to help us digest that meal. So that should be our biggest meal. We should be exercising between 6 and 10
Yep.
a.m., because that's when the kapha, that earth energy, is the biggest. So we want to kind of move
Hmm.
past that. And then we should be kind of going to bed, before 10,
Yeah.
right? And then that cycle kind of continues. We have the vata in there between 2 and 6 a.m. and 2
Yeah.
and 6 p.m. as well.
Yeah. One of the nice things of living in Arizona, it is a lot easier to get up early,
Yes.
and definitely getting on that clock where you are up early, you're working out, And then
Mhm.
being able to, the eating, I think, is something that's a battle because everyone thinks dinner should be the big
The big
one. And
because you're with your family and everyone's
correct.
coming home.
But trying to, definitely lay it down before that 9 or 10
Yep.
and then do it all over again gets that sleep pattern going really well.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
it does. It does. That's perfect. And otherwise, we get that second wind 10 to 2 at night.
Yeah.
And no wonder we're wide awake and ready to
Right.
go. But our body needs to detox. It needs to do what it needs to do to move on for the
Yeah.
next day.
And so, beyond your big passion and beliefs in what you're doing every day, you're also an entrepreneur, right? So
Yes, I
let's
am.
talk a little bit about the clinic and how you started it. And I know a lot of the listeners aren't here in Arizona, but they may find you online and so
Of
forth.
course.
So, how's that journey been for you?
Oh my God, it has been quite a journey in terms of being a doctor and setting up a business
Yeah,
and learning all the kind of, especially nowadays, of all the different pieces, all the
yeah.
different components, and I'm always learning, and just a seeker of knowledge anyway. So um, I've had a clinic, gosh, since 2007, literally since I graduated. Um,
Starting it right in the recession.
right in the
Perfect timing. Yeah, that's
recession,
great timing.
2007, right in Old Town, same place,
Yeah,
brick and mortar, cute little old building from the
love it.
1920s. Really fits the vibe of what I'm,
Yeah.
all about. And I worked out in the field, gosh, at so many different naturopathic, you know, businesses just to get my feet wet, to understand what's out there, um, detox centers, eating disorder clinics. I mean, I really worked my way around different places. And finally, and my place was called Ayurzona for the longest time, Ayur for
Hmm.
Ayurveda in Arizona. And that website probably still exists somewhere out in there, out in the ethers. And then in 2016, I want to say, I went like full force and I said, I'm going to rebrand and I'm going to do the branding the right way and get the website and do all the stuff. And I've not looked back, and I've been there from almost 7, 8 years, just solidly kind of putting all of my attention and energy into the practice. And we are Second Nature Clinic in Old Town. And I'd say it's a blend of all of my naturopathic medicine and tools, IVs, vitamin shots. We do a little bit of Botox and a little bit of aesthetics, mixed with a whole piece of Ayurveda. So we've got naturopathic medicine, and I keep them separate because I just know the Ayurveda has its own whole tune to it, and I wanted to keep it as authentic as possible. So I run a whole practice based on seeing patients, doing a happy hour every single week from 2:30 to 5 every Thursday, which has been going on for almost 7, eight
Nice. At the
years.
clinic
At the
itself?
clinic, we do a happy hour there. All of our IVs are discounted. Our shots are discounted. We've got massage. We have tarot reading. We make it a fun time
Hmm.
for self-care. Really was my mission behind that, was just to really allow people to understand that even if they committed to just a Thursday, one day a week where they remembered, hey, I got to get my self-care in, and that too at a discount. Like, how nice, right? So I wanted to make health accessible and fun for people, so that it wasn't this boring thing like,
Yeah.
I gotta go to my appointment, right? So that was just something that kind of came out of the whim, and I've been running it for years. But other than that, a full-fledged clinic. For those of you who are from out of town, we get a lot of out of towners who are just looking for a beautiful, like you said, like that massage, the warm oil and the third eye treatment, all of these authentic Ayurvedic treatments, a 5-day long detox procedure that includes enemas and warm oil and food and all of that. So we do have different kind of facets of the
Yeah.
practice. And it's kind of morphed into something super beautiful and continuing to do so.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
There's always trials and tribulations of running a business, but it
Yeah.
sounds like you've figured the niche and you know
Yes.
what the people want, and you
Yes.
make it very comfortable for them to come in and take
Yeah.
advantage of all the different things.
Yeah, and it truly, I'd say, is my mission. I published a book in
Let's
2014.
take a look at
So
this
let's
book.
take a look at the book.
Let's see what we got here.
It's something I just went to a writing retreat and said, hey, everyone has a book inside of them. I might as well go write something, and outpoured everything about Ayurveda and about my life and about my journey and about my family and who I am as a
Yeah.
person. And it goes home with every single patient who comes and sees me for a consult. And it's on Amazon. I mean, it's just something I feel was kind of a labor of love. And um, my mission really is to continue to bring Ayurveda as a household name and practice,
Yeah.
and bring the principles alive in the easiest, most accessible ways I can.
And have you seen the industry itself? Have you seen more competition? Is it still on, I don't say the
Good
fringes,
question.
but still kind of like not out there as much as you would like?
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
that's why I'm in on this path.
Hmm.
Is yes, it is well known in pockets of places. Like I think California would be a good
Yeah.
example of a place where it may be a little more recognized word. Here, I would say it's getting there. It's definitely better than a decade ago. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be just all the more known? And yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Some of the detox places, though, have become well recognized, well known across the United
Yeah.
States, and that's what we also, really specialize in.
And you said you're a yoga teacher as
Hmm.
well, yoga
Hmm.
certified. Do you do the teachings at the clinic, or is that something that,
It's just something I did more for my own knowledge,
yeah.
but I do incorporate, like, I'll teach a patient like sun salutations
Hmm.
in office if I'm trying to incorporate exercise into their routine, but I don't teach, regular classes or anything. But again, just beautiful
Yeah.
principle. Yoga is the sister science of Ayurveda. So it's like they go hand in hand. Yoga is, you know, Ayurveda is how to live life off the mat, right? And yoga is like how to do your exercise, how to do your movements, asana on the mat. So they go in
Okay.
tandem.
And
Yeah.
as we come to a close, if you were to, let's say somebody wasn't going to find you or search you out, but you were,
Yeah.
say, guide them in
Yeah.
a few things that they can take away, right,
Mm,
like to make their day to day better. What
yes.
would be the simplest thing for somebody who maybe isn't ready
Hmm.
to go deep,
Yeah.
and you're just like, this can help you feel
Yeah.
better, live better, be better.
Oh
What
my
would
gosh.
a few things?
Beautiful question. I think the number one thing, I probably write this on every single one of my little prescription sheets I hand out to my patients, is to make sure to eat when you are hungry. I think that can eliminate so much of our disease process happening in our bodies. And what does that mean, eat when hungry, right? Like that just means connecting mind and body and saying, do I have a digestive fire that is kindled, ready to go, and is hungry for food? Not just because it's 12 o'clock, it's
Hmm.
lunchtime, it's time to put food in our bodies. Really paying attention to our hunger levels. Think of a gas stove, right? We have low, medium, high. So if it's on medium and our flame that we can start to connect with is only on a medium heat, only put that much in, right? And that too, 20% less than that. So we actually have room to digest our food. So I'd say that's number one, is listening to our Agni, our fire in our bodies, how much hunger we have, and then only putting food in. I think if we just like take a moment to do that, that would be, I think, one golden ticket to just that anti-aging and everything we're kind of trying to accomplish in our lives. Um, Number two would be, gosh, I think that warm oil massage that I talked
Hmm.
about, really starting to, just love on our bodies, that self care, even if it's just getting and receiving one, and understanding what that's all about and how it feels. So grounding to our culture today, because we didn't talk about this, but I believe we live in a Vata toxic society. Vata means air, right? We are all just spinning
Yeah.
around. So the best thing we can do for ourselves is ground ourselves, right? And talk about mental illness, anxiety, depression, stuck in that mental loop. That's where we need that most amount of grounding. So I'd say that warm oil practice, that warm oil massage, and then yeah, just kind of being with our loved ones and really being present, I
Yeah.
think would be the third. I'm really a big proponent on that, is just really, you know, counting our wins and counting our moments with
Yeah.
those that we're around.
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
great one because in
Mhm.
today's world, it's, what can I do better? How can I be better? Why are they more
Yes.
successful? And just looking and saying, wow, I've built something pretty cool here with
Yeah.
family, or if in business life, or
Yeah.
not everybody health wise has to be at the pinnacle. It's finding little
Mhm.
wins to get
Yes.
them, and, taking a
Yeah.
breath
Taking a nice
and a
deep breath,
pause. Yeah.
pause. I love it. I love it. I'm a big proponent of that. I love, spending time with my kids, and I think it's really important, and just really showing them that you're present with them.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
this, I know this was, we probably could talk for 5 hours, so high level listeners, hopefully this was enlightening in what's out there, and not to say that you're doing the wrong things. It's just, there's a lot out there to help you become better, both, physically and spiritually and mentally. And, I believe, this practice has been around thousands of years. There's a reason.
Yeah.
And so in the show notes, there'll be a way to get a hold of you in the clinic, the book, all the things that we've talked about, and just continue following your passion and your pursuit to bring this knowledge into the world. And I think you're doing awesome things. And
thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Thank you. It was such a fun conversation. Really, really beautiful. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you. All right. Well, listeners, thanks for spending time with us today, and stay tuned. There'll be a new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond very shortly. Happy planning, everybody.